Hey everyone, welcome back to My Awakening. This is a really great playlist of mine. I really wanted to talk to you about the spirituality aspect of life, and I find this one to be really, really important. I think when I mention the S word, a lot of people don't even know what to think or say anymore because it's been so tainted with religion. But I don't go anywhere near religion. I think religion is means to an end. If you like stories and you like a journey of life in someone else's shoes and in aspects of what they went through and what worked for them, then fine. That's not any issue of mine. I think the Quran is beautiful. I think Buddhism is beautiful. And I think that even Christianity, before it got very messed up, was beautiful as well, before it all got tainted with, people swapping words around, and words are very powerful. And what he said, she said, whatever happened, I don't really know. Unless you're a fly on the wall and experienced it yourself, you'll never know. So for me, I think spirituality came down to my expectations of life and how I really learnt that my expectations played a huge part of my thought process. Those thoughts then turned into emotions, and then those emotions manifested physically for me and gave me ailments within myself. So let's say, for example, one of my expectations, I've had to be brutally vulnerable, was that a man was going to come along and make me happy. So that was the thought, right? So the emotion was that I had that worry that I had to have someone. So in that sense, I would go out and, that worry of not having it would constrict me quite aggressively. And so it would actually give rise to anger as well when I wasn't actually finding it. So I would find physically that I wasn't well enough as I should. I'm not in balance is what I'm saying. I wasn't in balance because I had this expectation, which comes down to spirituality. Then it came into the thought, then it came into the emotion, then it came into the body. So it doesn't always necessarily have to be thought, emotion, physical. Spirituality can be spirituality, which is our expectations and wanting different outcomes. I think for me, sometimes going through the different loops that we create for ourselves can be very powerful, and that was just one that I had. But for me personally, I think mental health comes down to your relationship with spirituality and what spirituality means to you. The spirit world will always open up to people that need it the most in life, and I think a lot of people who are not open to it are definitely, well, a level of skepticism serves you some sort of purpose as well. And I find that those people that cannot move forward in understanding what skepticism does for you has no real impact on my life and has no real impact on the leader that I am, because I am willing to take it into a space where we haven't been before. And instead of actually saying, well, it can't be measured and it can't be this and, it's not scientifically proven. Well, guess this, they are going to find it one day. And that's something that I know and trust. Whether it will be in my time, though, will be different, and whether or not the journey of evolution for these people that are going out there and saying, have we been asking the right questions as we've evolved along to really wake us up? Are we really, if I could say that measuring is only just a tool, is it the right tool? I'm not too sure. I don't believe so. I don't believe that this, these doctors that have this unable to think outside the box and understand the whole big part of it, because to understand it means you've got to take your time. You've got to go through deliberation and contemplation, and you've actually got to sit there and actually nut it all out and give it a go, even when you get it wrong, is a really important aspect of life. And I find that spirituality is a very big part of our life these days. And I find it's the expectations. If you keep wanting the same outcome because of the same expectation, well, you're really setting your body up not to work with you. I mean, the body is out of balance. And I found that I was very out of balance when I first started my transition a long, long time ago. I find that a lot of people don't even know the word of transition. Transition has many different meanings. It has many different levels. And transition itself isn't gender transition. That's most people, when I speak to them, think of gender transition. I think that's just the common thought these days because of the actual hype around gender transition. Transition has many different meanings and it has many different concepts around it. It's actually very difficult. So to understand transition and all of this within spirituality, thought, emotion, physical and all the rest of it, transition happens when we change our thought, when we change our expectations, and then we get different outcomes. But we can't change the thought unless we're willing to pay attention to the emotion, because the emotion is there for you. And I think a lot of people, because they feel ashamed, and this is what I said about in phase 1, was about shaming people for being human beings, will always be dysfunctional in my life. I don't really understand that. I've never really understood that. And you don't want to be hanging around people that do that to you anyway, because I'm going to be honest, they're like the drainers of life. So I always say, find people that respect where you're at, find people how emotional you can be at times. And sometimes for me, it's just a phone call with a trusted friend, and I just, lose my shit, or, I'm crying, or I'm doing something, and then I'm fine. I don't need to sit there and dwell on shit. I just need to move on. But you've got to go through the emotional side of life. You just need space. You need people to give you that space. You need people to respect you to give you that space. And you need to find people that know your value in your life. That's the most important part. And a lot of people struggle with that, even myself. So learning all of this is very difficult. But I really wanted to harp on about our expectations of life, and that sits in spirituality, is that our expectations that cause disappointment, and those disappointments cause so much ruckus and chaos. Hang on a second, but disappointment is very, very important in life. Why? Well, I think it's your commitment to your vision, I guess. And I think if life didn't give you balance in by giving you disappointment, you wouldn't actually be committed to the vision. And life wants to know, and source wants to know. I think that's very important. Source wants to know how keen you are. How are you supposed to take all of this, and how much do you really want it? And I find that to be such a moving tale of life, I think, because it knows you. It knows you before you know you. And so that's why I say I don't help people. I just learn people to really have a look at awareness and consciousness, and have a bit of a look at who we really are as people. I tend to find that's the most important. I also think self-worth has a huge, big thing to do with it as well. I think you've got to know your worth, even when people are yelling at you, trying to bring you down, trying to cut you down, and it hurts. It hurts for a humble person like me. But I learned that resilience comes from knowing how well can you get back up and continue on. It's just one of those things where you've got to be committed to the vision, and disappointment heightens that commitment to the vision. I think that's very important. But expecting different outcomes from what it will actually do, and hoping that when you have a hammer that you always have nails, well, that's the same outcome that you're going to get, because it's the same mentality, it's the same mindset. Change your expectations of it and have none, and learn that it really impacts the thoughts. How do you actually get to that path is, each to their own, and you've got to take that path in the end, because it's your initiative. That's the problem. People don't want to take initiative because they're afraid to get it wrong. But in the end, everything is forgiven. And if you don't have those people that will forgive you, it's one of those things where I don't want to hang around those people. I want nothing to do with them. So learn that being on your own isn't necessarily a bad thing, and learning that your life is your responsibility isn't a bad thing either. Learn that that's one of your greatest power in life, and taking responsibility for doubt is probably one of the biggest steps of your awakening, is knowing what all of this does for you, and know what overthinking does, know what all of these things do, and learn to live in the present. I think that's the most important part.